Matthew Pathew is a fucking fool. Instead of Undertale, he should have given the Pope Slay the Spire. The original game is an honestly brilliant experience that turned me on to the joys of collectible card games. I had watched Dawn and Major Duncan play the game on YouTube for a few weeks, and then around 2021, when Slay the Spire was on Game Pass, I was playing it pretty regularly on my Xbox Series X. It was a game that really sunk its hooks into me with its card combo potential, and each of the characters played so differently that it was a joy to figure out the nuances of their strategies. Eventually, though, I had to move on. There were other games to play, and burning so much money on Game Pass to keep playing just one game was definitely not worth it. And so, years passed, and occasionally I'd get the itch to play again. But considering I was no longer spending money on the subscription service that helps kill Palestinian children, and I had other games to get around to buying and playing, I never really set the money down for Slay the Spire, even though I could have easily been playing it on Switch or my mobile phone. But then, Slay the Spire II was placed in early access. Obviously, I popped it into my wishlist, resolving to buy it in a couple years when it was finished. And then my birthday happened a few months ago, which is as specific as I'll get on a public YouTube channel, and a friend of mine surprised me with a gifted Steam copy. From there, Slay the Spire 2 sat in my library for a couple weeks. I had other games I was in the middle of playing, videos to write, B-roll to record, and also this whole thing of working 2 jobs as a tutor and substitute teacher. But finally my curiosity won out, and I started the game. I am now completely addicted to Slay the Spire 2. I guess 2026 is the year of Ms. Fox getting exactly the kinds of games she loves. Kirby Air Riders, while a 2025 game, has been a defining moment of my 2026 gaming experience. Slay the Spire 2 grabbed me from the jump and refuses to let go. Dare I dream of a new Wario Land or even a Sonic Adventure 3? But no, this video is not yet another of my fanfictions. I'm a serious YouTuber and I can write reviews, damn it. Last minute script editing folks here. I initially had a bit where I wondered if the Star Fox rumors were true, and then between finishing the script and actually recording it, the direct came out. I feel very much the monkey's paw has curled on that particular wish, so be excited for my review in July, I guess. Mechanically, Slay the Spire is a roguelike deck-building game where the goal is to get through 3 acts worth of increasingly difficult bosses and enemies while building up the best strategies from randomly rewarded cards, artifacts, and potions. Cards are the abilities you use each turn of combat, split into attacks, skills, and powers. Attacks are, well, attacks, dealing damage and sometimes imbuing extra effects. Skills are nothing but those extra effects, such as increasing your block, poisoning the enemy, or giving yourself extra energy for a turn. Powers are passive effects you can evoke, usually lasting for the rest of combat, such as drawing cards when a condition is met, dealing set damage to the enemies at the start of your turn, or manipulating the cost of cards. Each character you can pick has their own unique pool of cards that they can gain as you progress through a run. The Ironclad typically uses strategies like losing health to deal extra damage, exhausting cards, or applying the Vulnerable effect to enemies. The Silent focuses on applying poison, discarding cards, or weakening enemies. The Defect is mainly centered around channeling orbs to apply different effects, but also has some strategies around creating junk cards. New to this game are the Regent, who has an entire second energy pool that other characters don't get and the ability to forge a sword of increasing potency, and the Necrobinder, who has a little minion who can attack and take damage for her, as well as a special doom effect she can apply to enemies. In its current form, Slay the Spire II has a great depth of mechanics to explore through its characters, and even the returning ones have some changes from the first game that make them worth picking up. Although, notably, one character from the original is still missing, the Watcher, whose stance change mechanics were always difficult to wrap my head around, and so provided a unique challenge. Since we're still in early access, there's a good chance she'll come down the line when Megacrit are finished sorting out her new mechanics. I'm also interested to see if and when other new characters are added to the roster. I've thought, and others online have posted, that it would be interesting to have a playable character made out of the cultist enemy. The cultists are an iconic enemy from the first game, clearly so since they're on Slay the Spire merchandise, and there's even some lore about how they've changed status since the first game. Mechanic-wise, there's the obvious ritual effect that could be used to slowly increase the cultists' strength, and perhaps their attacks would be on the weaker side to compensate for this snowballing. It could also be interesting to see them work with some kind of recruitment mechanic where if you meet the right conditions, you can turn enemies to your side and have them fight for you, perhaps even following you up floors. Combine that with some sort of ritual sacrifice that lets you trade pawns for buffs on yourself or negative effects on the enemies, and that could be the start of a pretty interesting character. But, well, that's just one idea, and I'm not going to sit here backseat designing for the developers all day. Regardless, there are certainly exciting changes coming in the future. Even between recording footage and writing this script, one of the bosses, that being the Doormaker, has been dramatically reworked to be a stance change boss. I'm not a huge fan of how they work currently, as the first turn being functionally invincible, making everything except powers and select skills entirely pointless, seems a bit unbalanced, as does one of the stances exhausting every attack and skill you play. But overall, this boss is much more interesting in this current iteration, and one of the benefits of a well-run early access game is that mechanics and ideas will be refined over time. Honestly, aside from some obvious placeholder art and some instances where sound effects don't play properly, the game feels like a finished release. There are obviously a lot of things planned for the future if the in-game timeline is any indication, but 5 mechanically deep characters with really solid gimmicks and 3 acts full of engaging bosses and enemies is already an incredibly meaty package. You've got so many systems to interact with that empower you to do so many stupid things when it all comes together, such as saving a duplicator potion for the Act 3 boss so you can play it on a power that makes the first 3 cards you play cost no energy, functionally making every card you play free each turn. The theming of the game also really helps increase the desire to replay the game. Slay the Spire takes a tone where everything is grim, and ultimately your actions seem futile. So if you end up losing to a bad draw, or enemies simply chipped away at your health too much before hitting an elite, you can just shrug it off with a "that's the way it is" attitude, and get back into another run. In general, I tend to take a buyer beware approach to early access games, but when it comes to Slay the Spire II, both because I've already seen the great first game they made and because of the excellent time I've had with the sequel, I can confidently say the experience is already worth the $25. You will not be disappointed. Unless, of course, you hate fun. Then you might, in fact, feel ripped off. Right now, my biggest regret with Slay the Spire is that I never had the money to get a Steam Deck. This is the kind of game that would be a joy to play on the go, especially during those long conferencing periods on substitute jobs where I've got nothing to do. Although, maybe it's for the best, because I might end up spending the entire period trying to decide between this and Kirby Air Riders. Perhaps it's better that Slay the Spire remains tethered to my computer and only occasionally ruins my sleep schedule. And that's all I have to say about Slay the Spire II. The game is fun, artistically charming, and scratches the itch in my brain that yearns for card-based strategy. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll come back for the next video. I also hope you'll give Slay the Spire II a chance if you haven't already. Until next time, I'll be in the Spire, straight up slaying it. And by it, well, let's just say, my deck. Our power is unmatched.